I'm really excited to share this with you. This is not a AI specific tip, but it's been extremely helpful for me. And the food bloggers I've shared this tip with have found it to be really helpful, especially when working with AI, when they're trying to sound like themselves, tell their own story, have their unique voice shine through when they're working with this tool. And it is enabling speech to text. So, there's a few ways to do this. I am going to show you how to do it in the computer app. So, if I am in ChatGPT, I can hit this microphone and now I'm going to tell it some stuff. So I'm going to X this out right now. You see those little wavy lines going? So that means it's taking the sound. But I'm going to ask it to make a recipe. Or I'm just going to tell it, I'm just going to go for it and you can see how it works. Today we're going to make a hot honey chickpea peanut butter sandwich with quick pickled cucumbers. We're going to start with a nice piece of bread, ideally a sourdough, lightly toasted. Then we're going to take the chickpeas and we're going to roast them at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. But before we roast them, we're going to drizzle them with a mixture of 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 1 tablespoon of hot honey. We're going to mix the honey and the peanut butter together and then coat the chickpeas with that. We're going to lay the cooking sheet pan with parchment papers for easier cleanup later. And then once the chickpeas are cooked, we're going to smear 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on the bread, and then we were going to add the chickpeas onto the peanut butter. And we should probably start this quick pickling process first, but we're going to thinly slice discs of cucumber and we are going to quick pickle it in lime juice. And as long as it takes to cook the chickpeas and assemble the rest of the sandwich is how long the pickles are going to pickle. Can you write this into a recipe card for me? Okay. So you can see that my thread of conversation was not linear, and it just caught all the words that I was just trying to say. Now, all right, I'm just going to hit and see what it does. So now it's going to head to work to make my recipe card, and as you can see, my description of my recipe was not linear and was a little messy. And we went from this gobbledygook into this more formal recipe. Now, if you ask this to, without the context documents, we're in this project here, without the context documents of how I like recipes formatted, I do not think it would make it this well. But it does have all that context document. It knows how I like things formatted. And it was able to reformat my stream of consciousness recipe, which is actually how I think. So that feels really natural to me, is this inside out recipe development of, ooh, what if I do this? What if I do that? And it's able to make it into a linear recipe. Is this perfect? Probably not. I'll have to go back in. But I can already see, where was the element? Now, I've done a lot of chickpea recipes in this project. And one of the things that I always say is I try to say is pat the chickpeas dry with a clean towel. Because I've added that into so many recipes in this project, it knows to do that. Okay, so that is pretty handy. Now, another version, this is this dictate. Now, if I come here, what do you think about this recipe?
I think
Oh,
absolutely. If you have any tweaks or you want to add a personal touch, just let me know. But overall, it sounds like a fun, flavorful combo, especially if you like a sweet and savory twist.
how would you sell this recipe on social media or advertise it. It's like a weird combination, but how would I make it sound really interesting and delicious, even though it's a really unusual combination?
Absolutely. Let's lean into that uniqueness and make it a selling point. On social media, I'd highlight the fun, unexpected angle. You could say something like, ever tried a sandwich that's a little sweet, a little spicy, and totally out of the ordinary? Meet your new favorite flavor bomb and peanut butter sandwich with quick pickled cucumbers. You can play up habits a surprising combo that just works. Maybe add something like, think of it as a flavor adventure that turns a simple sandwich into something you can't stop talking about. Visually, you could post a quick video of the sandwich assembly to show how simple it is, and then cut to that final crunchy, drippy, peanut buttery bite. Basically, you're inviting people to try something delightfully different and totally memorable.
So I'm going to end that. So there's two things going on here. The dictate is just capturing my words, putting it into text, and it's going to respond back in written form. When I do this chat version, I don't know why it doesn't really have a name here. So this says dictate, this little, you see those 4 little lines coming up and down. That is going to be a conversational back and forth. And that can be really handy when you're trying to clarify an idea. We're having a change of location because last night when I was filming that video, somehow I disconnected the microphone and lost all the audio for the second half. Which works out fine because there was 2 things I didn't cover and I wanted to make sure I went over. We are in my outdoors photographing studio. That's a mess, but I get to shut the door so while the kids watch TV or fight over the remote, you don't have to hear that madness. Okay, we left off with you hearing the chat conversation on the computer. Now, you can also do both of those functions on your phone if you download the app. Now, I'm pretty sure downloading the app is also a paid feature. I could be wrong, but at one point that was true. Now, I did this in the previous video that I lost audio, so that the conversation thread will look a little silly, but what I'm going to show you now is so when I go, let's do this again. When I go to the app, there'll be a similar interface where I'm going to come to this folder, go to that recipe I was working on, and I'm going to open it up in there, and I know it's hard to see, but there is the same kind of dictation function here with the microphone and the same little symbol here. I'm just going to go for the dictation function because I don't think you need to hear it respond to me, and I'm going to ask it to make an alteration to the recipe. What am I going to ask it to do? Pickled onions? I'm cooking this chickpea and peanut butter sandwich, and I, at the last minute, decided to add thinly sliced red onion to the quick pickled cucumber. Can we add that in? It was probably about 1/4 of a cup of very thinly sliced red onion. So that's thinking, and now it just sent that to the chat. And I have to click out of the project here, and let's go up here, go to the project, and then I'm going to click back into that particular thread. And, did it do it? I need to refresh it. Here we go. This is this addition to that recipe and its response. That's going to add that to that recipe, which is nice. So as I'm cooking, I can shove this in my bra or leave it on the counter. And if I'm on the fly and I have messy hands, I like to put it on the conversation, like the chat version, because it'll help filter out other mayhem going on in my house. It knows to not add my son talking to me about goldfish. If it's the dictation, I like to be able to stop and start it because that's not going to filter through the ambient conversations going on in the house. So that can be a really handy tool. I also love this for if I am waiting in a school pickup line and I have like somewhere between 3 and 8 minutes and I just had a great idea for a recipe. I can throw this on and just have a conversation with it. I want to point out you don't have to just do this in ChatGPT. I've been doing speech to text way before ChatGPT came around, and you can do it directly in the computer in almost any function that involves text. So if I go to my settings, this is like my system preferences, right, settings, I'm going to come down to keyboard, And if you come down here, there's dictation. This is on a Mac. I don't know how you do this on a PC. I believe you can do it on a PC, but I don't know how to do that, so you will have to do some Googling. This dictation, toggle on this dictation, and the shortcut is a key, and for me, I just left it on the default, which is this little globy looking thing you hit twice, and for me, that's also the FN key at the edge of the keyboard. So if I come into Notes, and I double click it, the text to speech should work. Oh, sorry. Speech to text should work pretty easily. It won't add in punctuation unless you, oh, it did add in punctuation. I thought it wouldn't, but it does. I had gotten used to saying question mark at the end of sentences, but this, when I first started using this speech to text, it was not as great as it is now, but it is pretty amazing. All right, I'm going to shut it off. So I just double click that FN globe button again, and it will stop doing text to speech. What's nice about that, again, is if you have your notes connected to your phone, you have that. And, real great hack, your significant other, if you have a shared one, you can have your running to-do list shared with your spouse. We don't really have a to-do list one shared. We have a grocery list one. So we'll both put it in. We're like, oh, we need garlic. And then we both know whoever gets to go to the grocery store, that's on there. All right. Last things. Okay. I have been using this microphone for the last 2 years, and I would say it makes a pretty big difference in terms of the quality, the amount of words and the clarity in which the computer picks it up. I had to buy this for a podcast I was on to make sure the audio was good on the podcast, and that was almost 2 years ago. This has been great. You can also do it with cord headphones. I would say that's not as great as something that was actually designed to pick up audio. And you could do ear pods, again, maybe better than the computer hardware microphone, but this is well worth it if you find yourself using the speech to text all the time. Also, this is amazing. The phone knows how to pick up audio really well, so don't be afraid to pull that chat up, and you could just talk into here, let it refresh, and work on the phone. If you find this mode helpful. For people who are excellent writers, this might not make that big of a difference for you. But I've also had quite a few people I've worked with found that being able to have a conversational way of working with the ChatGPT tool or a Claude tool unlocks their ability to talk about things in a more personal, authentic way. And that's not true for everybody. If you are like an extremely good writer, that might be helpful. I've also had a few people who are like, I'm pretty good at writing, but changing the way they interact with this can make you think differently. Now, to say you might want to be like, oh, I need to sit down and write for other things, and that might be important. But this is just another way to use this tool that can be helpful, particularly when you're on the fly in the kitchen. Other thing is this weird peanut butter chickpea recipe has been my odd example. I had never intended on cooking this weird sandwich or making this weird sandwich, but the more time I use it as an example, teaching people, I'm like, maybe I'll try it. I don't know. I'll keep you posted. So I just wanted to let you know I hadn't actually made this interesting sandwich, but we'll find out. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. The next video is context documents. I know at the end of the last video I messed up. I forgot about the speech to text, but I think this is so... The people I've worked with have been so excited by this. I did not want to skip out on it. I'll see you in the next video.